Cable types and connectors, peripheral and video. In this lesson, we're going to talk about a lot of different peripherals that we can use on our computers. Also, we're going to talk about the cable types that connect those peripherals. So let's go ahead and get started. Our computers have many peripheral devices that can increase their functionality and capabilities. Peripherals give us, our users, the ability to input data easily, sometimes even uniquely. Users need more than just standard outputs than computers can provide to us. Sometimes we may need special applications to output data in a customized way. Whatever the device we're using, whether it's an input or an output, the fact is they need to connect to our computers via cable connection or any other type of connection, Bluetooth, wireless, and so forth. So we're going to look at different ways that these peripherals connect to our computers. So first of all, we're going to start off with USB, which is probably the most common connection type used today. Now, the core of the USB is the USB host controller. It's an integrated circuit normally built into the chipset. Now, the host controller acts as an interface between the system and every USB device that it connects to. The USB root hub is connected to the USB controller and makes the connection to each port. A single controller can support up to 127 USB devices. USB 2.0 introduced high speed USB running at 480 megabits per second. Then we advanced to USB 3.0, and it has the maximum theoretical speeds of 5 gigabits. Now, earlier in the USB history, we had different types of connectors of USB. And these were smaller. They were smaller in size at that time to fit into the devices that we needed at that time. The first we're going to look at is the micro USB. Now, this one was known as the smallest USB connection type or connector type. The approximate size was 6.85 by 1.8 millimeters. Now, this was rated to have over 10,000 connect disconnect cycles. Then we moved into the mini USB, and this connected our same electronic devices, our PDAs, digital cameras, mobile devices. This was a little bit bigger, and it size was 3 by 7 millimeter or 0.12 by 0.28. This had actually a lower cycle life. It was rated to have 5,000 connect or disconnect cycles. So let's look at other type of connections, cable connectors and connection types. First, we're going to look at the serial cable or the DB9. Now, back in the day, the serial cable or the DB9 was used for a lot of different equipment. It was used for modem equipment and other communications type equipment. Nowadays, it's only used, or its limited use rather, is as a connection to a terminal, a serial connection to a terminal for configurations. It could be on network devices like routers, switches, and other devices that may have a serial connection. You would plug in a serial port connection port to that and configure the device or the terminal in whatever configuration you were providing. Now, the serial cable is a 9-pin D shell male socket type cabling. The recommended standard for this serial cable was the RS-232 standard. Now, you'll see these still out in the wild. However, they're not in use a lot of days now. Next we have is the Molex connection. Now, the Molex was a unique connection because it describes a two-piece pin and socket. And you'll see these a lot on the motherboards and other type of internal connections where it may be having a series of plugs, but it has a unique pin and socket where the pins may fit into a socket. And they may be rated with 4 sockets, 6 sockets, even up to 24 contacts. And they're also keyed for unique orientation to ensure that the orientation stays correct. A motherboard cable, the main cable is an perfect example. It has a key on it that only connects a certain way. Because if that key was reversed and connected a different way, of course, it will probably be the wrong connection or may cause damage. So, therefore, it's keyed to ensure that it's the correct orientation. Other forms of USB was the USB-C. Now, the USB-C is the newest iteration of USB, and it uses 24 pins, and it can be inserted in either orientation. Now, the USB-C is unique because it not only transports data, but data, power, video, and audio. Can provide up to 2.5 watts of power. And also, other manufacturers or other the companies like Apple uses the USB-C because it supports their buses, like the Apple Thunderbolt. And speaking of Thunderbolt, let's look at the Apple Thunderbolt connection. Now, Thunderbolt has went through its iterations as well. First we have the Thunderbolt One. That was the first version. It was full duplex at 10 gigabits a second. Then we had Thunderbolt 2, and that combines internal data channels, enabling throughput up to 20 gigabits per second. And also Thunderbolt 3, which is up to 40 gigabits per second at half the power consumption of Thunderbolt 2. And it also, again, shares the USB C connectors. Also, we have the Apple Lightning cable or Lightning connection. This was introduced in 2012 with the iPhone 5. Now, the Lightning connection had an 8-pin connector that replaced the 30-pin connection that was the dot connector. Again, this could be used in either orientation as well. And we've seen this in a lot of variations, a lot of various adapters available for Lightning. You can have a Lightning to HDMI, Lightning to DisplayPort, or Lightning to USB C. In all of these different configurations, again, a lot of adapter possibilities for the Lightning cable and a Lightning connection type. So video cables. A lot of times we use different video cables as for peripherals because for different applications. Now, first one we're going to look at is HDMI. The high definition multimedia interface is now the standard video interface on devices today. Digital signal that can carry both audio and video. Now, it has a 19-pin proprietary connection to this type of connection. It's a Type A connector. Distance limitations up to 20 meters can handle many different video resolutions. Again, it's the standard video connection in many devices on the market today. But there's also smaller devices that use the mini HDMI, which is a Type C type connection. Another video connection cable type you'll see is what's called the DisplayPort. Now, the DisplayPort was created by Video Electronic Standards Association, or VISA. It's compatible with HDMI, can carry video, data, audio, and USB. And it has a U-type connector. Now, there's two different types of connectors for the DisplayPort. There's the standard and the smaller mini DisplayPort. There are, again, many adapters on the market for the DisplayPort connection as well. You can go DisplayPort to HDMI, DVI, VGA, etc. DVI. DVI is a video display interface developed by the Digital Display Working Group, or the DDWG. Now, this was designed to transmit uncompressed digital video and can be configured to support multi modes of DVI A, which is analog, or DVI D, digital, or DVI digital and analog. DVI-D and DVI-I connectors come in two varieties, a single link and a dual link. Now, the single link has a maximum bandwidth of 165 megahertz. Maximum resolution sizes is 19 by 20 by 1080 at 60 hertz, or 1280 by 1024 at 85 hertz. And the dual link was a display resolution max size of 2048 by 1536 at 60 hertz. This is probably the most common video graphics cable that everybody knows about. It's the VGA cable, the video graphics array. Now, the VGA cable is a 15-pin connector, traditionally colored blue, but it may be in other colors as well. Now, the proper connection name is the DE15. Now, new monitors may include a VGA port, where it once was standard. Now it's not standard anymore, but it still may include a VGA port for legacy PCs. PCs may have also a VGA port for legacy monitors. Distance limitations for the VGA cabling was 10 meters. After that, you'll have experienced fuzziness and disorientation after that distance. Hard drive cables. Um, Different types of hard drive cables that we use for our integrated hard drives. The SATA cable and the IDE cable. Now, the Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, or SATA, is the most common hard drive connector used today. It was first used to connect just optical drives, like CD-ROM drives and other type of optical drives. But again, we use it nowadays as primarily our main connection for our hard drives. The data connector has 7 pins, whereas the power connector has 15 pins. Now, the integrated drive electronics, or the IDE, was the most popular at its time. They're not in use nowadays. You may come across older PCs, they may have the IDE type connection. However, these are not manufactured at this time. It was used for hard drive storage and tape drives. This technology is considered legacy today. SCSI and eSATA. Small Computer System Interface, or SCSI, most often used for storage, servers, dedicated storage, etc. Now, it was first used as a parallel bus, then used as a SAS interface. It was faster and but more expensive than the IDE at the time. Then we had the external SATA, or the eSATA. This was an external type of connection for the SATA connections. You can have a hard drive outside of the computer chases or offside of the motherboard through a connection on the port of the computer. It looks similar to the SATA, but it was keyed just a little bit differently. And your distance limitations here was 2 meters outside of the bus. So you can have a 2 meter cable outside of the motherboard bus. This also had the feature of being hot swappable. With our connections, there's a lot of type of adapters, some that we mentioned and some that we have not mentioned. But with the connectors and the adapters, different adapters allow us to do different things for different applications. As you see here, we have a VGA to DVI, a DVI to HDMI, a VGA to USB, or you can have a Ethernet to USB. There's many different adapters that you can use to connect your peripheral devices for your computers. Again, depending on the application, there may be an adapter for it. Okay, in this lesson and the previous lesson, we covered a lot of information. We started off talking about different network cables and the Ethernet connection protocol. Then we talked about our peripheral cables, the USB 2.0, 3.0, and the different serial, Thunderbolt, and other type of cables. We covered video cables, hard drive cables, adapters, and also connector types. We've covered a lot of information in these past two lessons, and I really appreciate your time for being a part of this course. That's it for this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson.